All right, all right, all right. It's that time again, ladies and gents. Time for the growth secrets for agile coaches and consultants. Let me know if you can hear me. Type in the chat. Question of the day. What's a good question? What's your favorite color? It's a terrible question, but we do homeschooling here. You may or may not know this because I talk about it sometimes. And we were learning about color theory today. That was what my wife was teaching on. She is the teacher extraordinaire. Love teachers. Love homeschooling. Love schooling. Love unschooling. But color theory, of course, light vibrates at different wavelengths. And with color theory, your body actually responds differently to different colors. Depending on the wavelength and because everything is vibrating. Everything in nature is vibrating or oscillating, whatever you want to call it. So what is your favorite color? That's the question of today, making it a little cooler sounding than normal. But this doesn't work if you don't interact in the chat. And if you aren't able to, it's probably because you're not subscribed. We do ask that you be a subscriber so that we pump out valuable content for you, Agile coaches and aspiring Agile coaches and people who want to become Agile consultants soon or someday maybe. Because that's the thing about the Agile coach role, because I used to coach Scrum Masters, and one of the things was they were just always chasing whatever direction the wind was blowing. Oh, this week I'm going after product owner, and I want to become a product owner. Well, why do you want to become a product owner? And we have ourselves convinced that it's because we love the product or we love the impact that we can make. But really, if we're really honest with ourselves, it's probably just as much income related as anything else. And I know product owner roles that make way more than a Scrum Master. I know Scrum Master roles that make way more than a product owner. And I know some of you are like, Scott, stop talking about Scrum Masters because I'm an Agile coach. Let's talk about Agile coaching. Who wants to talk about Agile coaching? And if no one's here, we don't have to have this session, but I do, I want to see you in the chat. There we go, Renee. Thank you. At least I know somebody's watching. Cool, cool. Renee, no favorite color. Okay. And that's okay, but it's also a lie. All right. The truth will set you free, but sometimes it will first piss you off. Okay. The truth will also not be a lie. That we know. Okay. So if you're watching and you're just tuning in, we're asking what's your favorite color. We talked about color theory a little bit. There's also color therapy. But what we're really here to talk about today is what? Layoffs. It's a hot topic because it's happening a lot. One in the chat if you've ever been laid off before. I have been laid off twice in my life. This was almost a decade ago. What I do is I see patterns in these things, right? What I can say is that in the past 5 years, I have survived 5 layoffs. And when I say survive in that instance, not getting layoff and surviving, but actually being having protected myself from 5 layoffs where other Agile coaches were laid off, right? So having had that experience and contrasted with the experience of getting laid off, I've learned a lot, and I'm going to share with you what I learned in those, because I would never wish this on anyone. And I see it so often, right? As people who, it's just human nature, as well as for those who aren't the entrepreneurial type, which I would question you because we're all kind of entrepreneur at some level. We've tend to have been conditioned in our lives to go find a job, working for the man, working full time, getting the benefits, the bennies, as some people say. And the world is not what it used to be, right? That's an archaic mindset, right? The world is a lot more flexible now. And in fact, you're starting to see the shift where people are running their own businesses. They're growing their own businesses, whether it's on the side or whether it's full time, right? And the ideal is that you run it on the side until you can allow it to become full time, right? But a lot of people, a lot of us are still conditioned to just work full time, and then what we tend to do is, I don't know if you've heard of the story about the cobbler's children. The cobbler is this guy who makes shoes, and he's making, like, his customers, he's making the best shoes ever, right? Like, better than Nikes, better than Adidas, even better than Skechers. Yes, it's true. And that was a joke, by the way. No, I love Skechers, but they're right, it is the S. And so, Scott Showalter, right? Of course, I gotta wear shoes that have an S on them. But I did just buy a pair of Adidas because they actually had steel toe in them, and I need steel-toed shoes for some projects that I'm working on around the house. So excited about those because they look like tennis shoes, but they're very protective, and we are here to talk about protecting yourself, right? But the cobbler's children always got, as we say, the shaft, right? Their shoes were the worst because this guy was just so busy making his awesome shoes for his customers. He never had the time to create the shoes for his kids that his kids needed. And that's a total lie too, because he had the time. See, that's the thing about every person in the humanity, whether you're like a billionaire or you're dirt poor, right? We all have one normalizing factor across all of us. All of humanity has this same factor that we deal with. Some of us just deal with it better than others, and it is that we all have the exact same 24 hours in every single day that we are alive on the face of this planet. And it is our very nature to, like, it's patterns, right? We continue to behave in the same patterns that we always behave until we break the pattern. Hope I didn't scare you too much there, but like patterns are how we run our lives. It's we like live on autopilot, right? Put an A in the chat if you feel this. Like, we're living on autopilot, and so we allow ourselves, in most cases, I know because I used to do the same thing, allowing ourselves to live every day as it comes, not really like living strategically, planning out our day, our week, our month, even our year, right? I talk to so many people, and they have these very loose goals. Yeah, I want to grow my income, but they're not specific about it, that it's not time bound, right? It's like, I know you've heard of SMART goals, and they're kind of cliche by now, but some of the most fundamental things that grow your income and protect you from layoffs and keep your career stable are the boring things. And that's what no one's talking about, because everyone loves shiny newness, and we're always chasing like the new hotness, whatever's out there that we think is going to grow our income, grow our impact, and grow our careers. And that's just not true. Now, I wanted to kind of bring this full circle because, earlier I said the truth will set you free. And of course, it is probably going to piss you off first. The truth is that, well, there's a lot of truth to this, but one of those things is that we have to be spending time on our career, not just in it. Does that make sense? Put a 1 in the chat if that makes sense. Spend time on your career, not just in it, right? So looking back all those years, when I got laid off the first couple of times, the very first time, I was working for a major, like, payments company. And when I reflected on like what had I done to cause this, well, one, yes, I was being paid at the highest level. I was like one of the highest paid people there. But even if you're the highest paid person at an organization, that doesn't matter. Because if you're doing things right, and we'll get to this, if you're doing the right things and doing those right things with the right people and actually producing value, then it doesn't matter if you're the most paid person in the room, because you're also the most valuable person in the room. So if you're taking notes, write this down. Be the most valuable person in the room. And back then I was a little more, I wouldn't say pessimistic, but more like realist. And so I wasn't, I wouldn't, I didn't call it complaining at the time, but looking back, it very much was, I was complaining about things in the experience that needed to be fixed. And I was constantly bringing them to the surface in meetings. Well, we still need to fix this and we need to fix that. And it's exactly what you see in the product world today, right? Everyone's chasing the shiny new things, right? Remember we said that earlier? Well, it's the same in product. It's not just in career and in life, but also in product. How many times do you experience LinkedIn, for example? Don't tell LinkedIn I said this, but LinkedIn's one of the most buggiest social platforms out there. And if you start working with it, you'll start to see those bugs emerge. And like these are bugs that have existed for at least 2.5 years, probably longer than that, and no one seems to want to fix it because they're spending all their effort coming out with what they feel is the next greatest feature, right? It's feature factories, not experience excellence, right? But it's the same. The same is true in our work. Like we need to focus on excellence, and it's one thing to complain about, bugs that exist, lack of positive experience, friction in the experience. But it needs to be done in a way that's positive, in a way that you're not just bringing the problem, but you're also bringing solutions. And I say solutions because there's probably more than one, and if you give options, right? Someone, generally speaking, right, as a coach, you probably are aware of this. Like if you give advice, it's rarely taken, right? But if you give options, then the person has the freedom to choose, the person that you're giving those options to. So looking back, I would have done that. Now, looking back, of course, every layoff was a blessing in disguise. I know that sounds cliche too, but it really was, at least in my case, in both circumstances. Allowed me to take some time off, spend time with family. I've got 4 kids. Both layoffs occurred when I had kids. So it was a nice time off, right? But it's never one that you want to have happen. Looking back at the second layoff that I've encountered, this was probably 8 years ago. The pattern I noticed there was that there was a lack of communication. So in this particular role that I was in, I was not communicating outside of the team of all the things that we were doing, all of the good things, or the rationale why I might have done something that maybe didn't make as much sense to an outsider. And in this case, so like if you've got, for example, product owners, you want to be communicating if you're on a product team with those product owners. Now I was 3 levels down from the CEO, and in this case the CEO actually was the owner of the work that we were trying to accomplish. And had I communicated more, I would have probably not got laid off, and probably would not have contributed to other people potentially getting laid off too, because I know I was not alone in any of those layoffs. But again, that's about creating value and also creating visibility to the value that you do give. Make sense? Throw an S in the chat if this is making sense. And if you're just joining us, we did ask, what is your favorite color? So just to make sure that you're still alive, participating, trying to figure out. I did get the chat back. The chat is back, ladies and gentlemen. But I need to know that it works, so go ahead and throw your comments in there. And also what questions are coming to mind for you. Blue. Alright, so we've got a yellow, a blue. Reminds me of the University of Michigan, which is the #1 school as far as research goes. It's the #1, I believe it's still the #1 research university. Okay, Eric, red. Alright, no worries. We got a rainbow here, ladies and gentlemen. It's all primary colors, though. It's kind of funny. Alright, well, my favorite color is orange, because it reminds me of the sun and of warmth and of oranges. And if I had you close your eyes and I say, don't think of an orange, the only thing you possibly could think of is an orange. So, alright. So, am I making sense? Everything's resonating with you? It's communication, communication, communication. That is what we're mostly missing. Because if you are laid off at the moment, and I know some of you are, or have been recently, the reason is probably at some level related to lack of communication. And it's not, I'm not like trying to place blame. Sometimes it's challenging to communicate the value of what we do, right? And that could be an entirely other episode, right? So when you're thinking about layoffs, you're thinking of it from two perspectives. How do I prevent myself from getting laid off? And how do I survive if I do get laid off? So I've talked about what I believe contributed to having gotten laid off twice in the past. Let me talk about how I survived 5 layoffs and most recently hundreds of Agile coaches. And it is because I am constantly communicating my value, and I'm going and I'm showing not just the value in what I do, but I'm planting value everywhere I go. And I'm going around all parts of the organization. I'm building relationships throughout the organization with leaders. That has allowed me to move around. If a coaching engagement runs out, I'm able to move around. If you're in a big enough organization, you can. But it has also allowed me to bring value forth. Like my leader that I report to in the organization that I'm with currently knows that I'm on a mission to find $10 million worth of value inside the organization. Now that they know that, I become the most valuable person in the room, because no one else, one, is communicating that level of specificity, and two, probably not communicating the things they're doing. They're just going and doing the things, kind of like the cobbler, right? He's going and creating the shoes for his clients, but not really like communicating it well enough that like everyone is coming to him saying, how can I help? Oh, and you've got children? How do we get them the best shoes ever too? Let's build a factory together and scale this operation, right? Cool. Troy, I see your request for an episode on communicating value. Duly noted, my friend. Duly noted. All right. So, are we clear on like how to prevent layoffs from happening? Communicate. Put a C in the chat if you're clear on that. Cool. Looks like it's resonating. Awesome. All right. Any questions on preventing layoffs? again, it's coming down to, being the most valuable person wherever you go, in every meeting. You're contributing, you're not hiding behind the camera with your camera off, right? And no one wants to hear this, right? But the truth will set you free. And I want you to be free. I want us all to be free people, right? Cool. So let's talk about surviving a layoff. Now, what do you do when you survive a layoff? Income stops. Well, one, we need to be smarter with the income that comes in. We need to be constantly investing not in risky things like the stock market, but stable things like investing in, real estate is one of those things that you can invest in. Real estate is one of those, if you invest the right way, right? It's an appreciating asset, right? The richest people in the world typically own real estate. I own real estate. You should own real estate. That's the thing, is like, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're making life harder on yourself. And I say it like this: when we're easy on ourselves, life gets harder. We need to be harder on ourselves so that life gets easier. And yes, that means not living paycheck to paycheck, not blowing all our income on certain things that make us feel good. Like, it's good to have a little bit of that, but we need to be investing. And investing in ourselves, investing in skills, not necessarily, certifications. I was going to tell a joke here, but I think I just blew it up. But like, what you're doing by working full time for someone is, when you're working for the man, you're at the mercy of the man's plan. And if the plan's not working, you're not working. And that's just not going to work, right? So if I were in your shoes, I would say to myself, Scott, you need to invest in yourself so that you can grow your skills, grow your income, grow your own business, and stop being at the mercy of other people's plans, and come in and be the person who gives mercy because you have a plan. And what I mean by that is, learn how to generate income, right? Learn how to lead an agile transformation rather than being under someone else's transformation leadership. And get comfortable with discomfort, right? Because it's comfortable working for the man. It's comfortable getting those bennies, right? And the truth of it is, that's a trap. It's like a monkey trap. Do you know a monkey trap? There's a hole in a can, and inside there's some nuts, and the hole is just big enough for the monkey to stick his hand in and grab the nuts, but not big enough to get the hand out of the hole once the nuts are in the hand, and the monkey wants those nuts, so he's not going to let go. That's what it's like working for the man. And if I know it feels safe, right? Why would you want to leave a safe place? Well, you know what's safer? Here's a hint. It's not safe certifications. It's tapping into the billions of dollars that are available for Agile consultants. Deloitte earns over $50 billion a year. Put a B in the chat if you want to tap into that $50 billion, because there's more available than just that $50 billion. You just have to know where to go to find it. But ultimately, what does this mean? It means there's no shortage of opportunity, right? In fact, there's an abundance of opportunity. So surviving being laid off, it may be your biggest blessing if you use your time and your mental energy wisely, by getting out there, putting yourself out there, putting yourself at a little bit of a risk, but it's calculated risk, right? That billions of dollars is there. So it's not risky, right? So typically what I teach my private clients is, go out, find clients who are willing to pay $10K a month for 10 hours a week worth of transformation work, right? That could be coaching, that could be transformation planning, leadership, that sort of thing. Land 2, 3, 4 of those, and you're $500,000 a year. Or, with just 2 of those, you're still, in most cases, doubling what you're earning now. And now you have 50% more time to spend with your family, to travel, to do things that you enjoy. Life's short. We'll never get these moments back. I've taken 25 minutes of your time that you'll never get back. Hopefully it was valuable. Put a V in the chat if you're getting value here. But you'll never get these 25 minutes back. You'll never get this day back. You'll never get January and February back. They're gone. These first 8 days of March, they're gone. We'll never get those back. And when you start thinking about that, and when you start thinking about the fact that we all have the same amount of time in the day, but at the same time, it's that limited amount of time that we'll never get back, you start to show up differently for yourself, for your family, your friends, your loved ones, for the clients that you can help. All because you were bold and willing to take a calculated risk to put yourself out there. And by the way, there's no issue with working full-time and then having one of those 10K clients on the side. No issues there. Like, yeah, you might work 50 hours a week, but the goal is to build up so that you can invest in finding more clients. Because some ways to find clients, there's a ton of different ways, but one of those is through scaling with traffic. That takes money. You're putting $1 in and ideally getting $2, $3, $4 back, but it still takes an investment. It takes money to make money. Do you think all the skyscrapers in New York were built using cash? Think again. They borrowed someone else's money. It's called OPM, other people's money. And that's how we grow. Sometimes we have to borrow. Cool. So if you're not interested, what's another way? If you're not interested in growing an Agile consultancy, what's another way to grow your income? Even if you're laid off, like what can you do? Well, I teach another strategy called Fast Cash with workshops. So if you are interested in growing a consultancy and you want to work with me to put together a plan, a strategy that's going to grow your consultancy, hop on over to LinkedIn, DM me consultancy, and we can schedule. I'll put time together either this week or next where we can get together. We'll do a deep dive, put together a plan of action for you to grow your consultancy. But if you're like laid off and you're just between work and you're wanting to grow an extra income on the side with like a side hustle that can, for the time you're not working can be like a main hustle, go DM me workshops on LinkedIn, and then we can get together and put together a plan so that you can get some fast cash even while you're waiting for your next opportunity. My last thought is give value. The number one thing you can do to both protect yourself from layoffs but also shorten the career gap is to give value. When your network sees you as value, as someone who gives value, and they see you as valuable, they will stand in the gap for you and bring opportunities to you like no one else. You see it all the time on LinkedIn. Those people that people are commenting with their name on opportunities, those people gave value to someone at some point. I almost guarantee it. Right? So, I never recommend that you rely on recruiters because those recruiters cannot sell you for the rate that you're worth. But if you're not going out there and you're not finding opportunities, it's probably because you're not giving value. So step back, take a look at your strategy. Does it make sense to continue? A friend of mine, and I know this is cliche too, but insanity, the definition of insanity is repeatedly doing the same thing expecting different results. Well, if nothing changes, nothing's going to change. So you've got to change something. If you want better results, you've got to change something. That's the biggest thing that you can take away from the session today. You've got to change something. or nothing's going to change. That's all there is to it. Right? Relying on job boards, relying on recruiters is not the way to grow anymore. It's not. There are hundreds of thousands of Agilists out there competing for the same work. You've got to do something different. Alright, that's pretty much it for today. Like I said, if you're interested in putting together a plan to grow your consultancy, type consultancy in the DMs and I'll respond. We'll put some time together to get a plan together. But if you're looking more towards the fast cash with workshops, throw workshops at me in the DMs in LinkedIn and we can have a conversation on that. Okay, cool. Yeah, don't put it in the chat here. Put it on LinkedIn. And then we can have a conversation around that. KK? Alright, I've got to run. But always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. And stay tuned. Next week we'll be talking back to you consultants on how to overcome the price objection when no one wants to pay you the 10K. Right? If you do it correctly, they'll want to pay you. But, you know, when you're noobs at this game, you might make missteps, and that's okay. So you might need to know how to overcome that price objection. Alright, thank you very much, everyone. Take care, and see ya on LinkedIn.